Never miss the latest videos from the people who help you play better golf. Hit subscribe here.
Talking Mizuno irons today with Chris Voshall, designer extraordinaire for Mizuno and his engineering team. Hey Chris, you had a couple of cool things on the website that I saw. First was just 24 players have reached number one in the world rankings throughout their careers. 13 of the 24 have played Mizuno irons. Did you know that?
I actually put that number together, so I did know that.
Nicely done. No, congrats. That scale is pretty awesome to think of more than half of the people who, well, first of all, only 24 players have been number one. That caught my attention, but then more than half of them have played Mizuno irons over their career. So you've done a nice job of changing, and now you've got some evolution in there. So we've got the 221 irons in here, which led to another quote that I saw. This could be perceived as the ultimate betrayal of Mizuno Pro, but the true essence has always been to make history, not be stuck in it. Nice job. You're very wise. These are very sage-like comments here. Very impressed.
There's
you want to talk about 221?
Who likes to edit quotes, so I like that.
I know you don't do those. I see quotes that I didn't necessarily say online too. So 221, we're going to sell about 3 sets of these this year to our GOLFTEC students, and there's a reason for it.
They will look awesome in their bag. Let's start there.
They do look awesome. You did a great job. But talk to us about these, and then I do actually want to state, who this is really for.
Absolutely. I mean, the 221, that's the window dressing of the line. That's the one that gets you to pick them up just because of its pure beauty. And ultimately, that's what Mizuno does best. That's what we're known for, is players' blades. That's why I have a job, if I'm being honest. But what's cool about them is there's some really nice evolution to the Mizuno Pro 221. Obviously, the look is an old school look with the script Mizuno Pro. And what's funny about that, and I know that quote you mentioned about the betrayal of Mizuno Pro, is that while this line brings in an old school look, like an old school script, there's nothing old school about how we designed these. There's a lot of technology put into these. So for somebody who looks at this and thinks, oh, that's just like my old MP29, it's not. We've come a long way from there. And with that 221, it's a shop maker's club. It's designed to be a small, compact blade, thin sole, thin top line, really players look at a dress. And ultimately, it's one that's designed for a player who does find the center pretty much every time. And, it's designed for that player who really wants the ultimate in control. And that's where there's not a lot of those, but some of those players can live within combo sets, when you get into your scoring irons with the 221. But ultimately, it's just a fantastic new set of blades from us.
Okay, no, that's awesome. And so if you had to pick like one thing out of this, the engineering side of it that makes it different than, say, the old MP blades that people think about with Tiger Woods and players of yesteryear, what's the one feature in here that you've added that makes this more forgiving than those clubs?
So it's funny that the old school blades, and they were fantastic, going back 14s, 29s, 33s, you name it. The way they were engineered and the way they were designed, the way all golf clubs used to be, was through craftsmen. It's a lot of hand grinding. It's a lot of dialing in head shapes and stuff like that, just on a grinding wheel. And kind of the center of gravity lands wherever it lands in that case. Now there's so much more technology. These are all designed in the 3D world where we can simulate and optimize the center of gravity placement, not only from front to back, but also from toe to heel. All these things to make sure that the club itself and the set itself is going to flow perfectly. So as the head shapes evolve, as the face gauges change from your 3-iron down to your wedge, you do get subtle changes in center of gravity if you don't really take that head on. And now with the new design character, you get really consistent CG, particularly CG height. That's one that you really used to vary a lot, where the center of gravity, when you got into the wedges and stuff, would get really low, and the scoring irons would get really high, which is the opposite of what you want. And you see a lot of designs now where we push the center of gravity lower in the long irons and higher in the scoring irons to really level that flight out.
Yeah, makes a ton of sense. And then, this is really made for one type of player, someone who's played blades here a long time. David Duval's walking around here somewhere right now. This is his kind of jam. This is not for anyone, I think, that's going to shoot in the 80s or above. That seem fair?
I think that seems very fair, and the beauty of the line, though, is that's a club that everybody wants in their bag, but as you said, very few should play. But that's where a good fitter can guide you through of perhaps you could play that in the 8-iron, 9-iron, something like that, where you want a little bit more control. But to take that through the bag, man, there aren't many of those out there. Not even on the PGA Tour, there aren't many of them out there.
Exactly. You made a good point. Those aren't the most popular irons on the PGA Tour for once you get up to, say, a 3 or a 4-iron for certain. Now, something like this is getting closer, though. Here's your 223. This one sounds interesting. I know there's some design stories about this one. Tell me a little bit about this without getting too feature and advantage and benefits related. Let's hear like the dirt about this one.
The 223 it's the club that's really the most unique from anything we've done in the past in our line. So traditionally, the middle of our MP line, the middle one, the shallow cavity, the small cavity, it was really just a blade with a cavity in the past. Now this one's got a lot more technology built into it. So we forged it out of our chromoly. We went thinner on the face. It still looks the part of that shallow cavity, but man, the performance is nothing like it.
Yeah, it's definitely a small blade for sure. It's not as small as your 221, but it's small, but you can tell you've got some tech built into this for some ball speeds. And then even on these, you've printed the loft of each of these clubs. So you got 34 at the 221, 32 at the 223, and then the 225 that we'll get to is 30 degrees at the 7-iron. A lot of people conflate the story of loft and distance. I know you know that and probably battle that all the time. So give the viewers at home your short story about why the lofts actually really do need to be different to change the performance.
So just the actual design of the clubs are so different, and where the center of gravity lives in the clubs is so different between them that ultimately you need some form of loft manipulation to get a ball flight that you'd expect. I'll use the extremes you have in your hand, the 225 and the 221. While from behind they look very similar, the center of gravity depth is very, very different. Center of gravity depth controls a lot of how a ball is going to launch and how a ball is going to spin. When you get a deeper center of gravity with a lot of loft, then ultimately you're going to get a golf club that spins a lot. And when you get a ton of spin on that, then you all of a sudden your distance gains that you're getting from that increased ball speed equate to a ball that just goes higher. It doesn't necessarily go farther. So it's ultimately, it almost cancels out some of the gains you get from the engineering, from the design. So our ultimate goal is to design sets of golf clubs that all are going to deliver ball flights that maximize distance, but also that land at the proper trajectory, because landing angle and descent angle are so key to, especially to a set of irons, where you have a set because they should all go a certain distance. We want them to go that distance and then stay that distance. If you designed everything with the exact same loft, it really would be a mess, because ultimately some of your golf clubs, though hotter faces, might actually go shorter than the blades.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And that's an important lesson that we just don't, I try to talk about as much as we can, because there's this set myth that a 30-degree 7-iron is just going farther because it's 30 degrees. But having a golf ball land on the ground at about a 45-degree angle for a shot into a green is really important. And if that descent angle gets more obtuse than that, and it gets closer to 55 because you have too much loft on a 7-iron or 8-iron, that ball's just coming backwards or not going nearly as far as it needs to appropriately gap too. So that the loft changes between irons should be expected because the tech's different.
And that's one problem I've seen in fittings, especially in the last handful of years as lofts have gotten stronger. There's some people that don't even benefit from that, as you kind of mentioned there, Chris, where the shot's coming in too shallow. So maybe they're hitting it a little farther or maybe not, but then they can't hold a green. What I've noticed with the little bit of testing I've done in the 225 is even though it's a little bit stronger, the balls still fly really high in a good way. So not only is it going to go farther for a lot of people, it's going to go higher. But what are some of the design features, or I guess how did you guys achieve the high ball flight in the 225, even though it is, again, a little bit stronger than some of the other irons in the line?
Yeah, we're getting that height from a couple of things. One, it is a hollow body construction. So it is a forged face and neck. So you get that Mizuno grain flow forged feel. But that hollow body allows us to concentrate mass in a more optimal area, particularly low and deep in this golf club. So inside that hollow body, there's a large tungsten slug that lives really deep in it. So when you can go a little bit stronger, but then you have that weighting back, then all of a sudden your center of gravity changes and that depth gets deeper so you can maintain launch angle. And that's a really interesting thing about it is you do maintain launch throughout the set, even though the loft changes. And as you mentioned just a minute ago, as your set changes, as the set goes from 3-iron down to 8-iron, down to 9 pitch, whatever. Even from there, we actually are very cognizant of what is the COR at each particular loft. So if you don't vary that COR at each loft, then ultimately you get ball flights that don't necessarily line up as a full set. So within that set itself, you have a hollow 2-iron all the way down to an 8-iron. When you get to the 9-iron, actually that hollowness goes away and it becomes a half hollow design, because that's all the CG depth we needed to maintain that trajectory of ball flight throughout the set.
And it should be way faster ball speeds, especially if you haven't gotten any new irons in the last 5 years or more in many cases. So you did mention obviously multi-material here then in the 225. I'm going to ask you all about metal today because I know a little bit, but certainly not as much as you. Because the 225, besides the forged face and the tungsten in there, it's a whole bunch of different metals, correct? Can you tell me, I guess, why you guys have to construct it that way? Maybe what some of the benefits of that are?
Absolutely. So yeah, we always start, and this entire Mizuno Pro line starts with a grain flow forged part. And it's interesting, especially in that hollow body category, you see forgings a lot. You see the word forged all over the place. Sometimes it's a forged face, sometimes it's a forged neck, sometimes it's a forged back part. But ultimately, forging, to get the benefit of it, you want that forging from the front. You want the face. You want that long grain from the face running up the hosel, because that longer grain length is going to be what gives you that more true, longer vibration on it. So all these golf clubs, the 221 features a 1025E Pure Select mild carbon steel. The 223 and the 225 both feature a chromoly forging. But both of those are billet forgings into those one-piece parts. The back portion of the 225 it's a stainless steel part that's actually welded on with the tungsten behind it. That steel allows us to concentrate more mass back and move it away, and that tungsten inside is more mass in there as well. When you get into the scoring irons, where I said it's a half hollow, that one's actually grain flow forged 1025E, just like the muscle back, but that's the face, the neck, and the top of the back. So then we just welded on basically a cap on the sole side to make it half hollow, and that's concentrating more mass low. So ultimately, we do like to pull a lot of material levers to make sure you're getting performance and ball speed where you need it, mass concentration where you need it, and also feel where you're going to benefit from it the most.
Yeah, I think the feel is one that obviously all the Mizuno irons have, but especially in the hollow-bodied, and when the hollow-bodied irons first became popular, they felt like that. They felt hollow, clicky, didn't feel very nice. Where I think these ones feel awesome. If you didn't know they were hollow, you would just think it was a single-piece forging. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. A lot of tech, but then you get a cool-looking iron and one that feels nice when you hit it.
So this iron, I'm thinking if you want to try a Mizuno iron, no matter what your skill level is, this is a really interesting one to try, even if you are a rock star player. I know if I were going to play one of these, and we got almost the whole line up here, this would be the first one I would give a shot. Extra ball speed, a little higher, a little more forgiving, and it looks
you look cool doing it.
And that's really all that matters, yep. Chris. I don't know if you knew that or not in design. And then real quick, I've got the STX hybrids that you have here. These look really nice as well. Again, black, so they obviously go far. And you've got some wave tech in this one too. So this is an interesting way to do the wave tech. You've got the first wave all the way stretching across the face, and then it's variable, but it gets very quickly near the center of gravity and where you would hit this shot. Can you just talk about how you design the wave tech in the hybrids?
Yeah, for sure. The hybrid in particular is a place where low impact is a common thing, and you have more loft on a hybrid as well compared to like a driver. So it's really critical that you get that good action from that wave tech and that softening of that flex, that transition between the face and the sole. So as you mentioned, that first wave is the most aggressive wave. That's the one that it absorbs the majority of that energy. So by transferring it all the way very, very much almost from the entire toe to the entire heel, you make sure that regardless of impact location, you're getting great ball speed. As you see that wave get further and deeper in the head, it's dissipating less because that first wave is really carrying that heavy load of it all. So from there, those secondary, tertiary waves aren't doing quite as much, but ultimately what they are doing is concentrating more mass low in that head as well. That's one of the beauties of the wave tech, is it not only helps increase ball speed on the face, but also helps us to concentrate mass as well.
Yep, that's good. And while the second and third wave don't do much relative to the first, still looks cool. So awesome job designing the irons. I'm sure no one ever tells you that, Chris, but you did great. So thanks for joining us talking about all your gear. That was fun.
Awesome. I appreciate everything y'all do, and make sure you get fit for these because there's a lot of good options out there.